Nice to have you here. We'll start in a few minutes, but if you're here, you can already answer the poll, which I pasted. So far, I'm happy with the results. And yeah, feel free to chat. Yeah, Manohar, thanks. I hope it will be interesting for you. Okay, we'll start in 30 seconds or so. Again, for those of you who just joined, thanks. I hope this will be fascinating to you as much as it's been for us in Salto, the AI journey. Okay, let's start streaming. Okay, so I think we'll start. Hi, everyone. My name is Lior Udorfer from Salto, and today we'll talk about AI and I, and specifically how AI is shaping the future of Jira administration. I want to give you an overview of what we'll do today. So in the next 30 to 45 minutes, I'll take you through some super interesting concepts. We'll start by talking about Jira and why the fact that it's no code, which is great, is actually holding us back from fully utilizing AI. Then we'll talk about how the pro-code and DevOps approaches are actually the approaches in order to enable modern Jira administration. We'll talk about AI and about the DevOps approach. Then I'll show you some real examples and talk about what Jira admins can achieve with AI today and in the future. And finally, see some live demos from ChatGPT, from Salto, and hopefully more cool stuff. At any point during this conversation, I'll stop sharing for a second. At any point during this conversation, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A or in the live chat. I'll monitor this, so I'll go back and forth from the presentation, and just feel free to ask them, and I'll answer during the session. You don't have to wait until the end. Okay, great. So let's go. Hope that you can see my screen. Yeah, now you can. Okay, great. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about the modern company. So Jira is not the only tool which is being used today in modern companies, right? You have Jira, but you also have Zendesk for customer success and support. You have Salesforce for the sales guys and maybe more departments. You have NetSuite for finance. You have Okta for authentication. The modern company runs on a lot of SaaS applications. And all these business applications, they require deep customizations. they don't come well configured out of the box, right? You need that's your work as Jira admins. You need to do ongoing customization, optimization. You have incoming requirements from the business. You need to adapt these business applications to the company that you work in. That means that's true for Jira, and it's true for Zendesk, it's true for everyone. Now, to enable administrators to do this from all sorts of backgrounds, all these apps use a no-code or a low-code interface, which means that in order to customize Jira, in order to build a workflow or an automation, you don't need to code, maybe a bit with script runner, but generally you don't really need to code in order to customize Jira or Zendesk or Salesforce. This is great because it enables administrators from all backgrounds to participate in it. You don't need to be a great coder to be a great Jira admin. However, the fact that it's a no-code tool is also a problem. And I want to talk about why and then what we can do about it. So no-code tools essentially introduce their own set of challenges. They're great, but let's talk about the challenges. So let's say I want to use ChatGPT, and I want ChatGPT to help me with my Jira administration. For example, I have this crazy project, tons of custom fields, workflows, automations, and something doesn't work. For example, in this ChatGPT window, I want to ask him, hey, when I move a bug in my software project to done, the Slack notification automation doesn't fire up. It doesn't work. Why is that? So I would like to use ChatGPT to help me with that. However, how do I take all my Jira configuration? You can see that on the left. How can I take all my workflows and fields and automations and somehow paste them into my AI tool, or somehow provide the AI tool access to this configuration in order for it to answer the question? Because this is not a generic question. It's a question which is relevant for my projects. So this is a problem, right? We got no-code Jira, which is great, but now I can't paste the code to GPT. Think about developers, for example. Developers don't have this problem. If a developer has a problem with their code, they just take the piece of code, they can paste it into GPT and ask, okay, there's a problem, or help me improve this code, or write code for me. This is not possible for no-code tools like Jira. And there are more challenges. Let's talk about them. The fact that we have no code makes it really hard to know what's actually implemented in Jira. If I ask you to give me a snapshot of what's in your Jira, what's currently implemented, you have to do a lot of clicks to answer that question, right? You don't have like a single view of what's the current implementation. And unlike code, when somebody makes a change, you don't really know why this change was made, who made this change, when it was made. This is all solved with code, right? If a developer makes a change, he commits it to Git. It's code, commits it to Git, he writes why he committed it and when, and it's all documented. In Jira, we don't have an equivalent. More problems. You're going to do a change in Jira. What's going to be the impact of this change? What is it going to break? I'm going to rename a custom field or delete a custom field. Is something going to break in Jira? Is something going to break in another system connected to Jira? This is hard to answer because it's no code, right? You can't run any tools to help you with that. Without code, how can you actually develop things in a sandbox without impacting production? Developers, they have code, they run it in their local environments or the sandbox, and then they just take this code and deploy to production. How can we do it with no-code tools? And there are many more challenges here. How do you review other people's changes? How do you roll back stuff? in a no-code system. Unless Atlassian gives you a tool to do that, how do you do it in the right way? And essentially, all these come up to, you have a lot of clicks, right? Your Jira administration involves a lot of clicks in a lot of places. But how can we make our work more efficient and work in a more modern way? Okay, so these are a lot of challenges that are all because Jira is a no-code system. We have AI challenges and we have these challenges. So if you go 15 years back, this was actually solved, right? Because another industry had the same problem. You had the IT industry. I actually remember 15 years ago in my workplace, I had to spin up a new server in order to build a database. And I had to go to the IT department and ask them to spin a server up. And I saw what they did. They actually went into this VMware wizard and they clicked next, 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 and they wrote the details of my machine. And this was a super slow process. The whole infrastructure part of organizations was very slow. They did a lot of errors. And the knowledge of how to spin up servers was all centralized within a specific group. But then there was this huge revolution. It's the as-code revolution, which essentially brought us tools like Terraform. With Terraform, I don't need any IT department to spin up servers. With Terraform, I write code saying, hey, I need 3 servers to spin up with a replica of my Redis cluster or whatever. I write it as code, I click go, and code does it for me, right? And this resulted in super fast release cycles and shorter delivery sessions, and eventually just better quality, right? Code-enabled infrastructure to be faster and better. So here's our approach. We think in Salto that being just about no code is actually holding us back. It's holding Jira administration back from benefiting from 2 of the most significant things which happened here in the last 15 years, DevOps and AI. And we think we can do better. So instead of staying in this no-code world, imagine a world where we actually use no-code to develop. So if you want to build a new workflow, sure, you do it in Jira. If you want to write a new automation, sure, do it in Jira, in the Jira UI, use the no-code system. But once you develop your configuration with no-code, we think you should actually go to a more pro-code approach to actually manage that configuration. And that's exactly what we did in Salto. And I'll show you more demonstration later, but this just a glimpse of it. We took all this configuration, for example, Jira configuration, but we also do it for a lot of other business applications. We took this configuration and turned it into code. So for example, you see here some board, right? This is a board that we fetched from a Jira Cloud instance. It's just text. And now we can talk about how this helps. I'll stop for a second to see if you have any questions. Yeah, Chaitanya, VMware 4.x was indeed horrible. Okay, perfect. By the way, I'm super happy to see that in the poll we have 100% of users of people who answered who used ChatGPT or Bard. So I'm not talking to people who don't even know what this means. If you haven't used it, go do it. You're missing out on this, the biggest revolution of our times. Okay, let's move on. So, back to our pro-code approach. So now, imagine a world in which your entire Jira configuration can be represented as code. What do we gain? So first of all, you have a bunch of files maybe, I don't know, 1,000 files which represent your Jira instance configuration. And the easiest thing you can do is just see what's implemented in one place without browsing around in Jira. If you want to search for a field or a board or where a specific field option is used, you can just do find all, right? You can do Command F and search for it because everything is represented as code in one place. You can also put that configuration in a source control system. So if your entire configuration is as code, you just commit it to Git. And then every time you do a change to this configuration, you just add a commit. And then you have a version history. And you can answer questions like who did, which change, and when. Once you have everything as code, you can build tools to answer questions about dependencies and change impact. So, for example, you can see where a field is used across your entire Jira configuration without Atlassian or any other tool having to implement specifically, okay, search for my field in automations. No, you just have everything as code. So just, it's super easy to do that. It's also easy now that you have everything as code to create shared responsibility within your team. So think if you have today a group of 5 admins, do you actually know what each of them is implementing in Jira and when and where and why? You don't. But if everything is in one place, in version control, visible to everyone, you can actually see their commits. Okay, my friend Dan did a big change to this project. That's interesting. Maybe I should find out more about it because it's in GitHub and I see everything. It also enables you to always develop in sandboxes, which means that if you have all your Jira configuration represented as code and you can take this code and push it back to another Jira instance, then it's super easy to work with sandboxes. You always develop in sandboxes, you always represent the full truth in sandboxes, and when you're done, you just push the code from your sandbox to your production. That's the right way to work. Developers have been working like that for years. Why can't we do that? With one click, deploy my changes from sandboxes to production. And the right way to do it is actually to open a branch in Git, to create a pull request, and you can take it as far as you'd like, with concepts from the developer world, CI/CD and branches and merges. I won't dive into that because that's not the subject of today, but we can be there. Doing rollbacks is super easy. You have a Git repo. You can go to an older version and say, okay, I want to deploy this version of configuration to my Jira instance. And finally, you have a nice paper trail. If an auditor comes, if you want to see, who did what and when, it's all in Git. Okay, now let's talk about the really interesting stuff. And you want to make sure there are no questions. Okay, let's talk about the really, really interesting stuff. You have Jira as code, which means that now all your fields, your automations, your workflows, your script runner scripts, your JSM queue and SLA configuration, everything is now text. Now I can use AI. Now I can take my LLMs, I can take ChatGPT, I can use OpenAI or any other maybe open source model which I've trained to deal with Jira configuration. And this opens an amazing world of options. We've started exploring them in Salto, and I'll show you live examples today. It's awesome, and it's only becoming better. So once you have things as code, you can ask GPT or any other LLM to explain your configuration. What does this script do? What does this automation do? Or when I move an issue from to do to in progress, what will happen? If AI can now get the data, which is your configuration, AI can answer these questions, right? You can summarize changes, and I'll show you an example. If you have versions of your configuration, I can actually feed the changes, the diffs, to an AI tool and ask him to give me a weekly summary. What happened in my Jira environment this week? Give me an executive summary in 10 bullet points. That's possible, it's doable, we have it working. You can predict the impact of certain changes. What will happen if I have the entire configuration? What's going to happen if I change this field? Or who uses this workflow and how will things break if I add a status there, for example? Now two more things which are a bit more advanced. We can start generating customizations. Think of an AI tool which can build an automation. I want an automation that triggers some webhook every time an issue in this project moves from in progress to done. Why not? If AI now has everything as text and he can learn the language of code of Jira configuration, he can learn what's an automation, they can also generate them for you. And it can be generating a single automation or maybe even generating entire projects and boards and filters from text inputs. Think how effective your work can be as Jira admins if there's an incoming request and you don't have to do a lot more than feed that incoming request from your company to some tool. And they can generate some initial solution, then you can work on it a bit to fix it or customize it further. This is not science fiction. We are very close to that. And there are more examples here. You can generate diagrams. You can actually ask AI to suggest solutions to problems. Once you have configuration as code, these are possible. And I'll show you some live examples real soon. Okay, and before I jump to these demonstrations, I want to emphasize something. This is not just about Jira, right? This is relevant for all business SaaS applications. We think that companies need a standard way, that we should have a standard way to actually manage this configuration across our entire stack. So think of a company which actually has their Jira, Workato, Salesforce, Okta, and Zendesk configuration all stored in one Git repository. And when Jira talks to Salesforce for some reason, there's some automation which works between them, or with Workato, this is all represented in one place. Think of, and then every configuration change, again, is a commit. And you can roll back your entire organization configuration to an earlier version if something happens. This is where we think we should go, and that's our vision. Cool. Before we go to demos, I'll quick view it. Questions. Again, please ask any questions that you have. This is I know it's an interesting subject, so don't be shy. Okay, it's demo time. Before showing Salto, I wanted to show you what's even easier to do today. I wanted to show you how once you give code to tools like ChatGPT, they can help. So I have this chat here, which I did earlier with GPT-4. I actually took, this is quite cumbersome today because getting, automation code from Jira, you need to export, and it exports all the automation. So I extracted a single automation JSON from Jira, and I just asked GPT a question about it. In this Jira automation, where is the output message sent? Okay, and I pasted the entire horrible JSON of this automation, and there's a decent answer, right? In the provided Jira automation, the output messages are sent to Slack channels, and it shows me the 2 Slack notifications and exactly where they're sent and what's the message. So it works. probably not the best or most interesting question I could ask, because this is a pretty simple automation. But think of a super advanced automation or script runner script. ChatGPT can help with these. It's just one option. GPT may not be the best answer. You may want to use eventually some models which maybe you trained, is one of the things we're exploring in Salto. But I wanted to show you how easy it is today to use GPT. GPT understands Jira automations. Put a JSON, paste a JSON, it can answer some questions. Quality is not 100%, but I would put it at like 80-90% of accuracy. It's really, really interesting. Okay, now let's go to Salto, because we took things and we fine-tuned AI to achieve some really cool stuff, which I'd like to show you. So let's start with Salto again. As I said, we represent everything as code, which means we actually converted the entire Jira configuration to our own language called Knuckle. So boards and everything are represented as knuckles, and let me show you how it looks like. So this is the Salto platform. You can see that on the left side, I actually connected a few Jira instances to Salto. So I have a sandbox here, a production here. And if I look at my sandbox, for example, I can see all Jira, my entire Jira configuration. So, for example, I can go to some project, right? And I can see all the project details. And behind the scenes, I just want to show you that every Jira element is represented as code. This is just text. This is just a file. And you see this file also has references. So, for example, this project has some workflow scheme. This points to another element. So we just have this graph of elements connected and represented by code. So I fetched, what Salto does is it connects to your Jira instance and fetches the entire configuration into code. And we present it nicely. You don't have to use code. You can just, look at things in whatever way you'd like. This is actually a nicer representation than code. It's a UI one, but there's always the ability to see code as well. And this is something that AI can work with. Okay, first example of cool things you can do once you represent things as code. So let's say there's a field, and it's called the SLA field, okay? SLA level. Because we have everything as code, and we know this graph of dependencies, which file or which element depends on another element, I can get a quick answer to maybe one of the most common questions in Jira world, who uses this field? So once we represented everything as code, this is a really easy question to answer. So you see, for example, that this SLA level field is being used in two places, actually in three places, two workflows and a single automation. So this is great for impact analysis, right? If I'm going to change this field, what's going to be impacted? Should I maybe go to this automation and make sure that my change will not break this automation? So we represented Jira as code, and I essentially got this almost for free. Next, let's use AI to understand automations. So I'll jump to another environment, and I have this automation here called important issues. If I click here, it will actually show me this automation in Jira. So this is some automation. doesn't have a description. It has a pretty, non-descriptive name. And as a Jira admin, I'm sure you've encountered these cases, right? Where you have an automation that maybe somebody else created. Maybe your company acquired another company and inherited their Jira instance. Or maybe you just started a new role and there are 100 automations which are not named correctly. I hope that these are problems that resonate with you. So we used AI to solve this. And for example, if I just click, this is a feature which we're going to release in a few days from now. It's called Explain, and it's super simple. You can choose any element you want, automations or a Jira workflow, and you can ask Salto to explain what this automation does. Behind the scenes, we use AI, we use LLMs, and this is the result, right? You have the automation purpose here, what triggers it, what are the actions which happen once it's triggered, and a summary. This automation is designed to handle high priority issues in Jira. It triggers when a new issue is created. What it does, it sends an email to the assignee, assigns it to a specific user, and sends a notification to a Slack channel. So this is really something that you can take and essentially paste to the description of this automation, right? This took a non-trivial automation, and it can be, this can be activated for longer automations, and summarized it for you. We think this is really cool. And this was not possible. A year ago, if you had to say, okay, please write me something that generates an explanation for any automation in English, like in 2 paragraphs, this would have seemed, to me at least, like science fiction. This is possible now, available now, and you see, in production. So this is really, really cool. And yeah, I can show you, this really works for any automation, which are usually the more complex things in Jira, but it can be the same thing can be activated for workflows, for scripts, and we're opening it to more and more business applications and element types. Any questions on this? I'm interested. Okay, Sam has a question. I'm interested in what happens at various points when you ask ChatGPT to regenerate. I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe you can clarify it. Ashwar has a great question. Can I build an automation rule in Jira by writing a sentence? Not yet, but this is definitely something we're working on. I said it earlier that our vision is take an user explanation, take a user story, take a user request for a new configuration in Jira, automatically transform it to a Jira automation or larger Jira configuration. We don't do it today. It's still hard. We need to teach AI. Out of the box, GPT doesn't do it very well. We need to probably train it a bit. But we're working on it. Sam, okay, I got your question. You're right. Sometimes ChatGPT doesn't do a great job, although GPT-4 is way better. Right now, it already has surprisingly good results with Jira configuration. It's aware of them. But you're right. Sometimes you have to regenerate. Sometimes you see that the answer isn't great. Maybe the content isn't great. Maybe the phrasing isn't great. We can ask them to regenerate. But the correct approach to this is actually to train your models. You have multiple approaches to do it. You can do a fine-tuning or give them a few examples. But we want to aim to a place in which it gives the right result. And by training it to do so, which is something we're working on, we think it's possible to have it answer the right question on the first attempt. The human part you're absolutely right, and the human part of artificial intelligence is exactly the training part. If I give LLMs 200 automations, and I tell them for these automations, this is how I would like you to describe it, it will do a better job. It's all about the training, it's all about the human input behind it. They don't learn from nothing. You're absolutely right. Okay, let's continue. I want to show you what Salto can do other than the pure AI part, because we have everything as code. So once you have everything as code, it's super easy to do things like compare and deploy. So choose any two environments, sandbox and production. Let's say I want to deploy one of my automations. I just developed an automation in my sandbox environment. Maybe AI helped me do that. And I want to push it to production. So let's start. Push a new automation to prod. Great. The first thing that Salto does, again, behind the scenes, it's all code. It just compares the two environments. So these are two Jira Cloud instances. I can see exactly what I have in production, which I don't have in what I have in my sandbox, which I still don't have in my production environment. So, for example, there's this automation. I can also see things which were modified, and I can see how they were modified. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's not. Usually when you push something from Sandbox, most of it will be new things, but maybe you want to push modifications. So let's say I have this this automation called Alert Noam on Urgent SLA. Again, I can get an explanation of a reminder of what this automation is. If, for example, somebody's done a bad job and haven't written the description properly. And once I'm sure that I want to move this automation from Sandbox to production, then all I have to do is select it. Behind the scenes, it's just a file, right? Something interesting happens here. I'm getting missing dependencies. Why is that? If you remember, actually this automation uses the SLA level field that I showed you earlier. So I get a warning, because everything is code and I can analyze it, that, hey, you need the SLA level field as well. So I selected it. I have an automation in the field. I still get a missing dependency for, there's an SLA level context, the context itself, which I also need, and that's it. I selected three things, and I can now easily push them from my sandbox to my production environment. This can all be automated, by the way. I'm doing it right now in the UI. It's easy. It still involves clicks, but some of our customers actually took this to way more advanced places, automations, GitHub Actions, CI/CD chains, and built a proper change management solution around this process. And again, this is all possible because the basis of it all is code. So I get this deployment preview. It says that everything is ready for deployment. This is the place, by the way, where we analyze if something's missing. If you're trying to deploy a piece of code or some Jira element, but you're missing something it references, or if you're trying to deploy and the user doesn't exist, this is where you'll get your errors. And finally, you can just deploy, and this pushes it to production. I think I did like 6 clicks, and I pushed an automation from my sandbox to my Jira Cloud production environment. Before I continue, any questions? Okay. Sam, you actually raise, okay, so Sam raises a great point here in the chat, that he's hoping that people will actually think about AI as an assistant or a first draft or trainee and not a doctor or expert. And this is currently different than and this is different than the AI religion in the media. I tend to agree. I think that I don't think that AI will replace, for example, I don't think AI will replace Jira admins. Like if you have a team which wants a new project and AI will do everything for them, I still think Jira admins will be necessary, but they will use AI to, I agree with what you say, they will use AI to generate a first draft. So build me an automation which does this and that. And AI outputs an automation. But then the Jira admin uses their expertise to go over that automation, fine-tune it, because AI won't get the absolute right result every time, and then publish it. So I agree with you. This is also what our experiments show. And it's a challenge because you need to enable this cycle, right, for AI to not automatically push everything, but to give it to kind of a review for a human, and then the human can improve it and finally push it to production. This is where we're aiming. If we think this is possible, and we think we'll get there soon, and I think it can accelerate Jira administration like 10 times more efficiently. Eshwar asks, we can move automation rules by exporting and importing JSON files. That's right, but you just saw in the demo that I moved an automation and Salto automatically analyzed everything which is needed by that as well. For example, the custom fields that this automation uses and their contexts. If you just import an automation rule, but there's some JQL inside which uses a field which doesn't exist in the target, that won't work. Now think of something more advanced. You want to push not just an automation but also a workflow. And that workflow has a script runner script in it. And that script runner script actually uses a lot of different fields. You want to be able to move all of these safely from your sandbox to production. And by doing this impact analysis, Salto can do it better than just importing and exporting. And I want to show you one more thing. Once you're done with it, you can actually push this change to Git. What does this mean? It means that I want to create a commit to my Git repository. We actually have a Git repository. I can show it to you. Let me first, before I push it to Git, I want to show you the Git repository. So I actually have a Git repo, Salto JiraCon, and you can see that it actually has commits for all my configuration changes. So now, if I go back to the deployment I've just done, push a new automation to prod, I can push this change to Git, right? So I just changed my configuration. I want to audit this. I want to document this. Maybe I even want to connect this commit to some Jira ticket that I have. So I can write a message here, description, and push it to Git. And now I have a new commit describing the exact change which I just done to my production environment inside my Git repo, which is exactly like developers work, right? Let's see this in GitHub. There it is. You actually see the new automation, you see the new fields, and you see who did this change and why. This is the future. This is how we think Jira admins should work, like developers, like DevOps. When your configuration changes, you push a commit. Vijay is asking, can AI be used in analyzing the performance of Jira instance? Probably yes. We haven't explored that direction yet. We're still aiming to see how it can help you with the functionality and business logic itself. But I'm absolutely sure it can. For example, one of the things we thought about is AI can be very, very good at finding duplicated things or finding opportunities to consolidate things. So maybe if we can feed AI, all of our workflows or all of our automations, it can actually suggest ways to consolidate them. Listen, you have 5 automations that essentially do the exact same thing. Maybe you can reduce them to 1. You have 3 workflows that are exactly the same, just on different projects. Maybe you can consolidate these. This is exactly what LLMs are good at, right? They can take large amounts of data and summarize them and compare them. This is we haven't done it yet, but it's definitely possible. One more thing which I want to show you, and this is another thing which Salto is working on. I hope for it to be ready within the next month or so. An executive summary. So because we represent everything as code, now we can feed the changes that happened within 1 week to another week. We can feed it to an LLM, and we can ask it to give us some kind of an executive summary. So think of a Jira admin, or if you're the senior Jira admin, or if you're a team leader of Jira admins. Maybe you have contractors who are working on your Jira instance, and you just want to get this nice report, what happened in my Jira instance this week. You don't want it to be too detailed because you don't care about every tiny change to any gadget of every board, but you do want an overview. So LLMs are great at that. Again, you see this a lot being used to summarize conversations. This is just another summarized functionality. So this is an example for something which ran on our own Jira instance, and you see some things. It's not very exciting, but some things which happened during a specific week in our Jira instance. Some filter has been updated, a project has been created, we've added some new context, and this is all customizable. So if you care more about specific areas of your Jira instance, great. Tell the LLM that, right? We can instruct the LLM to produce a summary and focus on specific places, your more sensitive projects, your more sensitive workflows or automations, and LLMs are great at following instructions. Okay, we're almost running out of time, and I want to leave more time for conversation. So let's recap. Leaving Jira to be a simple no-code system, while it enables admins to do their work more easy, we think it causes Jira to miss out on modern innovation. And this modern innovation is essentially 2 things. By staying just with a no-code approach, you don't get DevOps functionality. For example, pushing your configuration to Git, easy rollouts, easy deployments from one Jira cloud to another or data center to another. Impact analysis, you don't get any of these for free when you stay at the no-code world. And you miss out on the AI revolution. AI and LLMs can't read no code. They need text. So we think that once you take Jira and turn it into a pro-code system, so you develop things in Jira itself in the UI like you're used to, but then take this configuration, turn it into code, and then feed this code to AI, use this code with LLMs, gain all these amazing benefits, and also gain the DevOps approach, which can help you do your administration work much more effectively. We're Salto, by the way. I'm a senior product manager in Salto. We've been out there for more than 4 years now, based in Tel Aviv and San Francisco and Florida. well funded. We have a lot of happy Jira customers who completely transformed their change management process with Salto. So we hope you can give it a try. We're launching these AI features really soon, and you can just go to our website, learn more. You can start your free trial today at app.salto.io. By the way, we also have a forever free offering, so just go there, and for example, the entire Jira to code and impact analysis part, always for free. So just connect it to your Jira instance, and you can very easily see what's implemented and how changes will affect your Jira instance. Just go to our website and sign up. I think that's it for my talk. But I'd love to answer more questions now, and let's talk about AI. Let's see. Can we use AI to assess the Jira for hygiene? Yes, I think it's very similar for performance, because if you have good hygiene, the performance will be better. Definitely. If you can feed AI your entire Jira configuration, you can ask it to clean up stuff. And by the way, you've noticed that I focused more on metadata, or the configuration, and not the data itself. Data is a bit of a different problem, because the amount of information there is huge, and LLMs are better with dealing with smaller context windows and smaller questions. So that's why this talk mainly dealt with metadata, which is what Salto does. Yeah, dear Chetty, please generate a report for my manager. Definitely, that's where we're aiming. Maybe the manager will be able to do it by himself. Okay, any more questions, thoughts about Jira, about AI, about Salto? Okay, wait, I will share the link once more. Great. So once again, go to our website, reach out to us over email. You can, if you want to personally talk to me, I'm on Twitter. Just search for Lior Neudorfer from Salto. Start your free trial today. It's really easy to use, and we're working to make it easier every day. All right. So thanks everyone. I appreciate the participation. It's been an interesting chat, and thanks for the interesting questions. And I hope to see you on the Salto platform soon. Thanks.